So before I actually get into this topic, I just want to say this is probably going to be the realest video I've ever done as far as Dragon Ball goes. I'm not going to edit this video. I'm not going to do too much fancy editing. I'm going to do the infamous Geekdom One Picture gimmick because I want you guys to really hear what I'm saying. I want you to really hear what I'm saying, hear the words coming out of my mouth, and understand. And also, I'd like you to, if you like the words that I say and understand the message, to spread the video out and tell people about this video, because I really want to put the kibosh on this finally. All right. So one thing I'm very happy about is that the Geekdom 101 community, the people that subscribe to my channel, the vast majority of them, I have a wide variety of different kinds of people from all over the world. We got people from North America, South America, India, lots of Indian people and Asians, that whole region. We got people from the Philippines, from Europe. I'm very proud of this, okay? And this video is for everybody. I don't care how you got into Dragon Ball. In fact, that's what this video is about. I want to clarify and explain to people the history of this whole dub versus sub nonsense, and hopefully give people a better understanding of what's going on, because I've been seeing a lot of videos lately from a few different YouTubers and some Twitter comments from different YouTubers and different people in the community about this topic. And it's funny because when I first started doing YouTube a year and a half ago, I stupidly thought that this was kind of not a big deal anymore, but I see it more and more, and I want to really put a kibosh on it. So like I said, spread the word about this video, spread the video out to people so that they can understand the real history of how this whole thing got started, and kind of the kind of how, just to kind of open people's minds up to understand the different kind of fandoms when it comes to Dragon Ball. There have been some videos that are proclaiming, Dragon Ball Z dub fans as dubtards, and then you've got videos proclaiming, or people saying, oh, no, just because you only watch it dub doesn't mean that you're not as intelligent, this and that, or not as knowledgeable. I'm going to address all that, okay? But first thing I want to do is explain to people kind of a brief, I'm not going to go into detail, but just a brief history of where this whole thing started. Okay, so let's go back to the 90s, all right? I know a lot of you guys who are subscribed to me are young, and that's cool. And a lot of you guys were really little when this happened, or you weren't even born. So I want to explain to you, okay, in the 90s, and just to clarify, I'm only going to talk about Dragon Ball and mostly Dragon Ball Z. I'm not going to talk about like other anime like One Piece, the 4Kids Pokemon thing, and the dub versus sub thing there, because that's a whole other video. That's a whole other topic. I want to talk about just Dragon Ball Z, okay? So in the 90s, when the anime boom started, okay, anime was kind of a new thing. In the 80s, there was anime, but what happened was Saban, and then by the way, I'm not scripting any of this. This is all off of my head, all right? Saban Entertainment, who is famous for Power Rangers and Samurai Pizza Cats, anything from Japan that came here and was rebranded, chances are it was either Harmony Gold or Saban. So Saban was putting out anime in the 80s, but we weren't supposed to know it was anime. They were masking it. Shows like Grimm's Fairy Tales and The Little Bits and Maya the Bee on Nick Jr., they were dubbed, edited to shit, and basically completely changed just for the American audience. They were, quote, Americanized. Now, again, we're going to get to that here in a minute when it comes to Dragon Ball Z. So in the 90s, okay, 1995, Funimation gets the rights to Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, both, from Harmony Gold, and they start putting out Dragon Ball. First 13 episodes. This was the, quote, Ocean dub. It was recorded at Ocean Studios in Vancouver. It was a Funimation production with Saban doing the helping them out. They were helping them out, and Pioneer was putting out the DVD. So you had like 4 companies involved. Saban still had that mentality of, we're going to edit this to shit and we're going to Americanize it, okay? You following me so far? So 95, Dragon Ball comes out. They only do 13 episodes. So somebody says, let's just go to Dragon Ball Z. Let's do Dragon Ball Z because Dragon Ball Z is more action-packed and more of a superhero type show, and it'll get over more with the young audience, young American kids. And they were right. I mean, there was some truth to that. Dragon Ball, it's funny because they stopped at episode 13 of Dragon Ball, and right after that's when the tournament was about to start. So they missed the good action part of Dragon Ball and jumped right to Z. I don't think they should have done that, but that's just my opinion. Now, I don't want to talk about production and shit like that here. That's a different video, all right? I just want to talk about the fandom. I'm going to paint you guys a picture of the old school Dragon Ball fandom versus the Tsunami Dragon Ball fandom versus the Kai Dragon Ball fandom, and try to explain to you where this whole thing started. So, here's what happened. They put out Dragon Ball Z, the Ocean dub, again, recorded in Ocean Studios. This was the original DBZ dub. It was in syndication. And for those who don't know what syndication is, this is basically when you have different local markets in different parts of the country airing shows at different times. Most people I've talked to saw Dragon Ball Z in syndication on the WB. They only dubbed 53 episodes of Dragon Ball Z. Really, it was 67, but what happened was Saban edited the hell out of the series, chopped out the blood, changed the word hell to Home for Infinite Losers, cut out a lot of the filler, and shortened the series down from 67 episodes to 53 episodes. And it was basically from the beginning of the Radix arrival, it was called The Arrival actually, all the way to when Goku lands on Namek, and the last words that you hear from the narrator after Vegeta gives his speech about Goku possibly being a legendary Super Saiyan, you hear the narrator say, "Has Goku really become a Super Saiyan?" That was the last thing you heard. And that was it. That was the end of Season 2 of Dragon Ball Z. We literally were cliffhangered there, and that was it. No more Dragon Ball Z. It took 2 years. Listen to what I'm telling you. 2 years before Funimation would continue the series. What happened during those 2 years is after the syndication run, Dragon Ball Z was moved to Toonami. Cartoon Network said, hey, we need some anime, we need some action-packed shows. They already had Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon did very well for them. So they said, okay, let's bring in Dragon Ball Z. So Dragon Ball Z goes to Toonami, 5 p.m., blows up. This is the original Dragon Ball Z dub, the original Ocean dub that I'm telling you about. 53 episodes. This is before Chris Sabat. This is before Sean Schemmel. This is before Bruce Faulconer. So anybody who actually sits there and says that, you know, Falconer's the reason why DBZ is popular, that's a myth. Dragon Ball Z blew up before he was even hired. We're going to get to that in a minute. So what happened was the fans back then fell in love with Dragon Ball Z, just like each and every one of you did, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be watching this video. So try to go back to that era. Paint yourself in that era. Us, and we're talking about the teenagers back then, because I was a teenager back in the late 90s. You know, a little bit of like the preteens and maybe some of the adults, right? They love Dragon Ball Z. We got hooked on this show, and they cut it off right when the narrator says, could Goku be a Super Saiyan? He elbows Raccoon and knocks him out with one shot, right? Are you following me? We were so obsessed with this show. Where did we go? We went to the internet. Now, obviously, the internet was a new thing back then. Web pages were totally different. I've talked about this in my interviews with Ryan Molina, with Mike Labrie, with Hugio. There's tons of Icons videos that I've done that have covered this in detail, okay? You follow me so far? So, what we did was we went to the internet. We started tape trading and downloading with very, very poor quality the rest of the series, because we love Dragon Ball so much. We love Dragon Ball so much that the only way for us to watch it was to get the Japanese tapes. Some people were blessed enough to have the Spanish dub, like I had it, but not every market had it. Some people had French, German dub, whatever. And that's one thing I do want to point out, guys, is that when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, the English dub of DBZ is the most convoluted nonsense. I could sit here and do a 2-hour video telling you the entire story of the Dragon Ball Z English dub, from Funimation to Harmony Gold to Big Green, and it's literally going to take forever for me to tell you the story. It's such a convoluted mess, whereas other countries don't have this problem. France, Germany, Latin America, Philippines, that's a different story, but you get what I'm saying? There's all these different language dubs of DBZ that never had this problem. It was just Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, and the movies. That's it. We didn't air it out of order. We weren't missing episodes. It was all done correctly in other countries, but because, like, I don't know what the reason is, the English dub was a mess. So what did we do? We became obsessed with the series, and then we went out looking for tapes, to trade tapes and download episodes. We wanted to see the rest of the series. Almost everybody watching this video is watching Dragon Ball Super, and you're watching in Japanese. And why are you watching in Japanese? Because there is no dub. The dub has not come out yet. I've talked about the dub on my channel a couple times and what's going on with it. The dub is not out, so your only choice is to watch it in Japanese. Same thing with us. Let me explain to you guys something. In the 90s, their subtitled anime was not a thing, okay? The companies back then were ADV, Pioneer, and Manga Entertainment. Those are the three that I remember. Almost everything they did, right, was dubbed, right? So you could get some anime subbed, right? But we're talking about tapes. This is pre-DVD, okay? When the DVD era began in 97, 98, 99, then we had, for the first time ever since Laserdisc, which almost nobody had, we had multilingual releases. We could watch Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Ninja Scroll in English, Japanese, sometimes even Spanish, German, whatever they could fit on the disc. So this is, again, dubbed anime is all you had back then. Okay, and there were good dubs, there were bad dubs, same thing as now. The problem was we were so hungry for Dragon Ball Z, we didn't want to wait. We did not even know if they were going to keep the series going. We didn't know. So all we did was we went out and we found a Japanese version and then so think about this, right? You're watching this heavily edited Ocean dub, good voice acting, pretty good music, I would say. But you get these Japanese tapes and you're like, oh my God, there's blood. Oh my God, wait a minute. It's Hell, not Home for Infinite Losers. And you're watching this and you're just like, holy shit, like you're just mind blown. Like this is how the show's supposed to be. So as a kid, it's kind of like when you first discover like a rock band before it gets popular. Like that's my band, right? Dragon Ball Z was our show. Like the blood, the violence, the mature themes that the English dub had totally erased from existence because of censorship and because people were way too sensitive who ran production companies back then, and they were way too insulting to American kids. And that's really what it comes down to, that they thought that American kids couldn't handle the themes of Dragon Ball, which I thought was BS, but that's my opinion. We got this uncut Dragon Ball that was incredible, okay? And we fell in love with it. I'm telling you the truth. We fell in love with watching it subbed. If Dragon Ball Z was done in the 90s the way that other anime is done now by Funimation, by Viz, even by Manga Entertainment, I'm telling you right now, if it was dubbed like that, the vast majority of people who watch it subbed would have probably never discovered the sub. That's a harsh reality that a lot of elitist sub fans, because there's a lot of elitist sub fans out there. Some people have even said that I'm one of them, and I'm not. I'm very real. You guys should know this by now. A lot of these elitists don't want to accept that, but it's true. Had this fucking series been dubbed and all the episodes come out in order and in timely fashion, we would have never, ever even watched it subbed. Now, me, as a person, Danny, Geekdom, whatever you want to call me, I am telling you now that I would have probably watched it subbed to try it, but that's because I like to watch things in their original language, including movies like Godzilla. I watch movies from Italy, from Israel. I like to watch stuff sub because I just wonder if they're missing something. It's just something that I've always been. But perhaps I wouldn't have developed that taste had it not been for the Dragon Ball Z fiasco. So what happened was Funimation goes in there, and because of the popularity of Dragon Ball Z on Tsunami, Cartoon Network goes back to Funimation and says, we need more episodes. Can you please give us more? This show's a hit. So Funimation, to cut costs, rather than bring back the Ocean Group, Pioneer, and Saban, Funimation's like, we're going to do everything our own damn self. We're going to voice over it ourselves. We're going to use our own scripts. We're going to hire a new music guy, and we're going to release it ourselves. Everything was done in-house Funimation. That's why the Funimation dub is called the in-house Funimation dub. And that's when they hired Chris Sabat, Sean Schemmel, all these guys that you guys all love and adore. That's when they got hired. And Bruce Faulconer. Bruce Faulconer was hired because the tapes they received from Japan were a little bit lower quality for the music. Plus, they wanted to sell Faulconer's music to make royalties, okay? So that's the real reason why. Plus, the other reason, which I think is very insulting, that they hired Bruce, and this has nothing to do with your opinion of Bruce or not, it's more about the reason why, is because they felt that American kids couldn't handle silence. They wanted music to play every single second of the episode because they think that all American kids are fucking. And when I say American, I mean like also Australian. You know, anybody who speaks English, they thought that we were all like these, you know, ADD kids who couldn't sit still for an episode, who couldn't handle silence in an episode. That's legitimately what they thought. And that's why Bruce got hired. And that's why even before Bruce, when Shuki Levy was doing the music, there was music playing at all times. That's why. It's a very archaic and dumb and disrespectful way to look at your audience, but that's the way it was back then. Not saying that's how it is now. That's how it was back then. And Funimation was definitely not the only company that was doing this. Now, a lot of people like to say that there's two kinds of Dragon Ball fans. There's there's dubby and subby. No, I disagree completely. There is hardcore, there's semi-hardcore, and then there's casual. If we weren't hardcore, we would have never gone out and went after the Japanese tapes. If you're not hardcore, you would never watch Dragon Ball Super. I've actually seen people say, right, I'm not going to watch Super, I'm waiting for the dub. That tells me, right, that tells me that that person is not a hardcore fan of Dragon Ball. That's not what they are, because if you were a hardcore, look at the word hardcore. Hardcore, look up the definition of that word. If you are a hardcore fan of something, you're not going to give a shit if it's in Japanese, Chinese, German, you're not going to care, Dutch. When Resurrection F was coming out, people were watching bootlegs of it in so many different languages before it actually came out in theaters in the US. You're not going to care what language it's in. It's new Dragon Ball. It's new stories of Goku. It's new stories of Vegeta. It's new stories of Gohan. You are not going to care if you're a hardcore. If you're a casual fan, there's nothing wrong with being a casual fan. There is nothing wrong with it. I consider myself a casual fan of many, many things, right? There's so many, okay, for example, like Indiana Jones. I am a casual fan of Indiana Jones. I'm just throwing that out there. I am a casual fan of, I don't know, Family Guy. I'll watch it once in a while, but I'm not going to go out and seek, the behind the scenes information or try to pirate it or any of that stuff. I don't care, Dragon Ball, though, there's a group of fans who are so hardcore, they want to watch more Dragon Ball, and the only way to watch it is Japanese. So what happened was, not only did we discover the amazing uncut version, but we also discovered Masako Nozawa's Goku, the Japanese voices, and we also discovered the Shinsuke Kikuchi Japanese music, which a lot of people don't like, but you have to understand that it's all about taste, and if you don't like that music, whatever, that's fine, it's your opinion. But back then, that music was so epic and grandiose, and it just made the series feel better. So, back to the story. Funimation starts dubbing Dragon Ball Z in-house. Bruce Faulconer does the music. Series airs on Cartoon Network, and it, again, explodes, does very, very well. But here's what's happening. While this is going on, there were people who were of my, fandom, of my generation, who were pissed because of the lack of bilingual DVDs, because back then we wanted to watch it in Japanese and we wanted better quality tapes, and they were also pissed off because the dub, back then was not very good. I'm going to say something right now that people need to accept, okay? If you judge the Dragon Ball Z dub, the original Z dub, to any other dub, and I'm not talking about the entire thing, I would say they got really good until the Buu arc, but if you compare that Z dub to the Kai dub, or if you compare it to Full Metal Alchemist or any of these other modern Funimation dubs, that dub is a piece of shit. It just is. The voice actors were not well trained at the time. The scripts were, heavily homogenized and changed, and not for the better. Now, here's the thing that you got to understand too, that a lot of people who are elitist sub fans need to understand, okay? Even though we knew that the script was different from the Japanese version, they changed a lot of things that we thought were unnecessary, and the music was different, so many kids grew up with the Tsunami dub, the Tsunami Dragon Ball Z dub, and here's the reality, folks. A lot of people got into it through the Tsunami dub. So you know what? At the end of the day, the Tsunami Dragon Ball Z dub was actually a good thing for the most part. Did it spread misinformation? Yes. Did it have script issues? Yes. But did it also create a whole bunch of new fans that are now watching us and learning more about the series? Yes. And that's the important thing that people need to remember who are the elitist sub fans. Now, the dub fans have to understand something, is that the reason why people got into the sub is because they were, back then, they wanted more Dragon Ball Z, and that's the only way to get it. And if you're watching Super now, you know this feeling because now we're seeing it all over again. There are people now who grew up with the Bruce Faulconer dub, who love the Dragon Ball Z Faulconer dub, and that's fine. And they're watching it in Japanese and they're falling in love with it. They're saying, wow, I really like Goku's voice. I got used to it. So many people are saying I got used to Goku's voice. And I've talked to Black and Fist about this in detail. We've had conversations, and we do agree that the one big division line in this fandom, there's two. One is the Bruce Faulconer music and one is Goku's voice. Those are the two biggest things, okay? What I've always said, and what other people have said, like Super J, and even though he says it's a lot harsher than me, is that if you want to understand why Goku sounds like that in the Japanese version, you have to understand that, number one, Nozawa was chosen by Toriyama, and number two, she voiced Goku in Dragon Ball when he was a kid. You're not supposed to watch Dragon Ball Z first, okay? That's not how it works. You have to watch Dragon Ball, then Dragon Ball Z. That's the way it was, and it just happened to be butchered because Z came here and blew up first, and Z is more popular, but that's not the right way to watch the story. It's supposed to be Dragon Ball, then Dragon Ball Z. Nozawa voiced Goku as a kid, and by the way, guys, tons of women voice kids in all languages. This is not anything new. So when it came time to make Goku an adult, because Goku's character was going to be an overgrown man baby, not a superhero, he was an overgrown man baby. That's pretty much what Goku is. Nozawa was kept there. Nozawa voiced him as an adult. But so many fans who grew up with Shambles Goku, they'll sit there and they'll say, oh, Goku sounds like a girl. Well, no, he sounds like an overgrown man-child. That's what he is, and I want people to really understand that. If you don't like Goku's Japanese voice, that's fine. I mean, you have a right to your opinion. What I don't like is when somebody goes so far as to disrespect Nozawa or Yoji Yanami, or even like the American voice actors. Because I'll tell you one thing right now. Those people who sit there and they praise Chris Sabat and they talk shit about Horikawa, you do realize that Chris Sabat really, really, really admires Horikawa. You do realize that that's disrespectful, right? Like, I hope that you realize this. Like, if you sit there and you say, oh, well, I've seen this before. I hope that Goku's voice actress dies. Like, that's going to piss off Sean Schemmel. Like, fuck you. Like, you have to respect. Show some respect. It doesn't matter what version of the show you like. Show some freaking respect for everybody who has done a voice on this show, from Brian Drummond to Chris Sabat. I've talked about this. I have interviews with these people on my channel, okay? To Horikawa. You have to respect them because there's a reason why they're doing this gig, and there's a reason why they're considered legends. There's a reason why Nozawa is a legend in Japan. It's because of her portrayal of Goku. And I'll be honest with you guys, I don't even understand why this fandom is so obsessed with comparing Schemmel to Nozawa. It's stupid to me. You don't see people comparing the American Little Mermaid to the Japanese one. You don't see people comparing the English Homer Simpson to the Japanese one. Why is it always Dragon Ball? Because from Japan? You don't see Japanese fans doing that with other anime or animation. It makes no sense to me. It's two different languages. You know? It's like, how do you really know how well someone's doing if you don't speak the language? I mean, yeah, you can compare like vocal inflections and intensity. Yes, you can do that. But how good is a dub if you don't know what's actually being said? Now, the reason why I feel that it's dumb to insult the Japanese dub is because that's the original dub. That's the original. Am I saying it's the best? And it depends. Everybody has their own opinion, but it's the original. Had it not been for that dub, there'd be no other dub. And I think a lot of people need to get their head out of their ass, both the elitist sub fans and the dubbies. They need to get their head out of their asses and get a little more informed about what's going on. Rhymestyle and I have talked about how the reason why the Dragon Ball Z Tsunami dub was so powerful is because it's the first thing that was imprinted onto you. So if you're watching Dragon Ball Z and you're hearing the Bruce Faulconer music, that is what you pretty much associate with those scenes. I associate Spirit versus Spirit with Gohan turning SS2. A Bruce Faulconer fan would say something differently. Everybody has a right to their own opinion. However, disrespecting the original version, I think, is a no-no. Now, the reason why I have criticized the Z-dub is because the Z-dub makes unnecessary censorship changes, and I'm very, very against censorship, okay? So, you know, especially when it comes to entertainment and changing the morals and the story of a show. So I'm not going to like that. And I genuinely do think Kikuchi's music is better. That is my opinion, okay? But I think that in this community, there's too many people, you know, attacking others for their opinion. And here's what I'm trying to tell you. Here's my challenge, okay, to everybody, all right? Learn more about the series. Learn why things were done. And if you're subscribed to me, you're going to know because I'm going to tell you in all the different interviews I do and everything. Learn more about what's going on, how things were done, and the different kind of fandoms, and that way you'll know kind of where someone's coming from, okay? I'm the only guy in this community, the only guy on YouTube. I am the only guy on YouTube who's lived through every single dub, okay? So what's going on now is that history is repeating itself legitimately. People grew up with the Funimation dub. That's fine. Now they have to watch Super. Some folks don't want to watch Super because it doesn't have Bruce Faulconer and because it doesn't have, you know, a dub. And yes, I consider those people casual. Do I hate them? No, I don't hate them. I think they're just people who are casuals, and that's fine. But there's also different kinds of hardcore fans. There's hardcore fans that are collectors, hardcore fans that play the video games. You know, there's different kinds, but people who are just not willing to watch Dragon Ball because it's in a different language, I think, I'm not going to disrespect them, but I think you're a casual fan, because if you're hardcore, like I said, you're not going to care what language it is. It's Dragon Ball. You will wait for the dub. You can watch it dub when it gets done. You can have a great time with it, show your kids. That's fine. But if you love Dragon Ball, if you really love Dragon Ball, you're going to watch it no matter what. If Dragon Ball was an Italian show or a Dutch show or a German show, I'd watch it in Italian, Dutch, or German. I don't care. But one thing that I will tell you that might hurt some people's feelings is that if you grew up, and this is something that I remember, I've been in this community since before any of these things were dubbed. I got into this shit in '94. If you are somebody who's only seen the Funimation Dragon Ball Z dub, and that's your only exposure to the series, you have no right, and you don't have the knowledge to argue with people who have seen it in Japanese, read the manga, watch Kai, because you're not going to win. You're not going to win. I qualify you as a casual fan. Are you dumb? Are you stupid? No, absolutely not. You're just a casual fan. You're just you watched it when you were a kid. You loved it. You have nostalgia for it. That's fine. But don't sit there and try to argue with people like myself, like your Kwamans, like your Black and Fist, like the Kanzenshu, like Lance, like Zeon. Do not try to argue, because you're just not going to win. You're going to look stupid. Instead, listen to what we're telling you. Read up if you don't believe us. Do your research, and you'll see that we're pretty much going to be right. And it's not an elitist thing. It's more about hardcore versus casual. And I think the issue is when you have the casual fans who think that they know more than they actually do. But that's how it is in every fandom. So I don't blame Dragon Ball for this too much. It's just that's how it is. But it's funny because when I was growing up, Bruce Faulconer and the music in the dub was the most hated shit ever. The internet was composed of 95% anti-Faulconer. And then as kids who were younger than us were growing up on the Faulconer score, it became completely balanced. And where now we have fans who hate Kikuchi, hate Sumitomo, only love Bruce Faulconer, and because that's what they grew up with, that's what they were imprinted with. But also understand that if you are a hardcore fan, here's where it gets interesting. If you're a hardcore fan, you're not going to care about that kind of stuff. You're going to watch it no matter what, and thus, if you're a hardcore fan, you're going to move past the nostalgia, because almost every hardcore fan that I know started with a dub and then graduated into being a sub fan. That's kind of how it works, okay? Now, I'm not saying that you have to become a sub elitist. I'm just saying that because Super is only available in sub format, you're kind of doomed to watch it like that, or you're a casual fan. And that's okay. Again, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being a casual Dragon Ball fan. I just think that it's dumb that we're still having this freaking dub versus sub crap in 2016. It's dumb. If you like Sean Schemmel, great. Doesn't just because you like Schemmel doesn't mean Nozawa sucks. If you like Brian Drummond, if you like Scott McNeil, if you like Chris Sabat, if you like Bruce Faulconer, if you like Sumitomo, it doesn't matter. Okay? It doesn't matter what your opinion is. Just don't go around spreading shit as facts when you don't know what you're talking about. That's a problem that I have with people. And that's on both sides, okay? The point is that it's not about preference. It's about how much you want to dig into Dragon Ball. Because guess what? It's Japanese. And the only way you're going to learn about Dragon Ball on a high elite level is to travel into the world of Japan. Is to learn about it as much as you possibly can. And it's fun to learn about those things. But if it's just a show that you watch when you were a kid, that's fine. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that I'm so sick of this dub sub bullshit. And I'm telling you right now, I am not tolerating insults to anybody. I'm not going to tolerate somebody disrespecting Nozawa. That's an automatic block. Disrespecting Schemmel, saying Goku sounds like a girl in Japanese. No, you sound like an idiot in Japanese because you don't know what you're talking about. If you knew the history of what was going on, you wouldn't say that. So my challenge to the community, after I've talked your ear out for 30 minutes now, is educate yourselves, become better fans, and if you're a casual fan, just accept the fact that you're a casual fan, and it's fine. It's there's nothing wrong with it. I'm tired of the division line here. And to the hardcore fans, teach rather than attack. Make the casuals hardcore. Some of them aren't going to hop over. I know it hurts. It bothers me when people don't hop over. But that's just how it is. Some are just not going to hop over. So be it. Just, fellowship with each other. And definitely take care of yourself and each other. Spread this out so people get the message. I'll catch you down the road.